So we are currently in the midst of Scarlet and Violet DLC season. The Teal Mask is out, and the Indigo Disk is coming out soon, and naturally, along with that, people are beginning to look at what the next Pokemon games past the DLC are going to be as well. And personally, I am essentially 100% convinced that the next Pokemon games that could very well be coming out next year in 2024 are going to be Unova games. Either in the form of a Legends Unova, a Black and White remake, a Black and White 3, or something similar. There is so much at this point that points in the direction of this that it's kind of insane. So today I'm going to be covering 15 crazy hints that point to a game like this coming next year. Let's check it out. So today's mysteries are being brought to you in part by today's mega awesome sponsor, Dave. Videos like this don't just poof out of the sky. They cost money to create. And Dave is great when it comes to money because Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's Extra Cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest, and then settle up later. Plus, paying back the money on time can even help you to establish and improve your credit. You can also get this Extra Cash instantly for a small fee, or for free in just 1 to 3 business days. Everyone could always use a little extra money, and we've all been in that situation before where you've got something you gotta pay for, but payday is still a little ways away. And Dave basically helps to bridge that gap and get you that money when you need it to take care of whatever you need to. So if that sounds like something that interests you, you can download Dave today at dave.com/hoops. That's dave.com/hoops. You could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Again, download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/hoops with the link below. And a big thank you to Dave once again for supporting the channel. Okay, so for the sake of this video, I am going to refer to this possible game as Legends Unova, but keep in mind that at this time, it could still end up being a variety of different titles, such as a Legends game, or the aforementioned remake, or a Black and White 3. The hints are as legit as can be either way though, so let's go ahead and get into it. The first one, which I wanted to cover first because it adds a lot more weight and legitimacy to the rest of them, are all of the rumors and leaks and reports themselves that this is happening. Leakers in the community who are known to be legitimate, such as Riddler Koo, have been teasing that something Unova is coming recently, and it's essentially more or less been revealed by them that a new Unova game is going to be happening. Given Koo's positive track record, that would probably be enough to trust this idea on its own. However, he obviously hands his info out in riddles and doesn't ever reveal the whole picture, so it would only make sense for us to also look elsewhere to see if these claims can actually be corroborated. And boy oh boy can they ever. The most recent major development in this story comes from the Teal Mask DLC, where it was revealed that Blueberry Academy, the setting of the next part of the DLC, the Indigo Disk, is in Unova. Even if you just take this at face value, this literally confirms that things are shifting over at Game Freak, and Unova has now become a focus again, which is a massive point in favor of a full-blown game coming soon, that this DLC will now likely serve as a lead-in for. On the one hand, you could argue that this is all just for the DLC itself and nothing more, but again, there just seems to be way too much going on for this to just be about one half of a DLC. Like, for instance, the fact that Drayton also exists. Drayton is one of the Blueberry Academy's Elite Four, and based on his appearance and the Unova connection, he is very obviously related to Drayden in some way, possibly being a grandson or something similar. So essentially, with characters like Drayton, we not only have a Unova setting in this upcoming DLC, we have brand new characters that connect directly to Unova and put even more focus on it, which really seems to add to the idea that something is indeed brewing regarding a new game, especially when keeping those leaks and reports from Ku and others in mind. It's not even just Drayton either though, as with the reveal that Blueberry Academy is in Unova, Lacey, who is also from this Academy's Elite Four, is also very likely a relative of another Unova character, that being the gym leader Clay. This is due to the fact that, number one, we're obviously in Unova, but more importantly, the gem on her hair clip is identical to the one on Clay's hat. And even her name, Lacey, is a near anagram of the name Clay, which may or may not be a legit connection to be honest, but with all of the other Unova stuff and hints and connections that we've seen recently, it seems more likely than not, in my opinion, that there is a connection here, and that this adds to the idea of a new game coming even more. It's not even just the characters though, as even the Pokemon themselves are emphasizing the Unova theme, as Duraludon is obviously getting a new evolution in the Indigo Disk called Archaludon, who is clearly meant to resemble and is based on a bridge, which, given that we're in Unova, obviously comes from Unova's many bridges, and therefore is essentially, for all intents and purposes, a new Unova Pokemon, and if that doesn't scream that a new game is coming, I don't know what will. As I have said though, you could argue that all of this is just meant for the DLC, and isn't going to spill over into any new game. However, there is still a ton of evidence and hints outside the DLC that continue to push this even further. For example, it's very interesting with all of this Unova hubbub going on that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are the first games to be named after colors since Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2, and this very possibly could have been intentional from the start in order to establish the themes and motifs, if you will, of this generation, and help to connect the Paldea games to the Unova games all the more. We've even seen something similar to this happen before in Gen 6 when X and Y came out, and then later on in that generation, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came out afterwards, which continued the letter theming of the names of the games. I personally suspect that the same exact thing is happening with Scarlet and Violet, which will be followed by the also color-themed titles of Black and White. This next one isn't necessarily a direct hint so much as it is a sign of the times or a sign of what's to come, but there have been a ton of Unova Pokemon getting evolutions and new forms recently, and they have absolutely been in the forefront in that department. We got a ton of Unova Paradox Pokemon. We're obviously getting the Paradox Swords of Justice, which are a big deal. There were lots of Hisuian forms of Unova Pokemon and new evolutions for them in Legends Arceus. There are standard new evolutions of Unova Pokemon, such as with King Gambit, and the list just goes on and on. This has definitely been giving us those Unova vibes for the past little while now, and very possibly, and even likely at this point in my opinion, in preparation for what is to come with this new Unova game. Now is where it gets really fun though, because there are even connections in the original Black and White games themselves to what is going on in Scarlet and Violet now that suggests that something could be coming. I have mentioned this one in videos before already, but the concept of Oplucid City in Black and White being a location that is themed around the past in one game and the future in another is absolutely identical to what is going on in Scarlet and Violet, and is a little too perfect to just be a coincidence, especially with everything else going on. It seems that Game Freak are pulling from the original Unova games and are already using elements from them in Scarlet and Violet as a sort of connective tissue, in order to tie the titles together as we move into whatever this big Legends game or remake is going to be. Another example of that are the crystals that appear in Driftvale City in Black and White 2. That look nearly identical to the Terra crystals from Scarlet and Violet. These are in the games, and in Driftvale in particular, because Clay, the gym leader of Driftvale City, is a miner, so that is really all they have going for them in the Unova games themselves. But they definitely do appear like they are being used now as another piece of connective tissue to bring these two generations together, and these connections would presumably be explored more in the upcoming new Unova game. And as I have mentioned a couple times already, when you couple stuff like this that's already been out there, out in the open for a while, with all of these new reports from credible leakers that something is going to be coming, it almost seems undeniable at this point, at least to me, that we are very, very possibly going to be getting a big new Unova game soon. Even more hints and connections of this variety come from the Nacrene Museum in both Black and White and Black and White 2, where, upon exploring the museum, you can see a mask on display that says that it was worn by ancient people at festivals, which is essentially identical to what is going on in the Scarlet and Violet DLC with the Festival of Masks in Kitakami. Obviously, that's not why this mask was placed there at the time, but now it seems like it is way too perfectly aligned with what is going on now to just be a coincidence, especially with all of these other connections. And just like all of these other connections, it very much seems like this, as well as other background elements from the Unova games, are being used as connective tissue to Scarlet and Violet, because we are in fact going to be getting a new Unova game that truly ties these two generations together, that's going to come out soon and will continue the stories and themes that we have explored in Scarlet and Violet and to this point in this generation. This kind of connective tissue has been occurring in multiple games though, including in the lead up to Scarlet and Violet in Pokemon Legends Arceus. I noted it at the time myself, but there is a ton of Unova-related stuff in this game that seems completely out of left field given that it's a Sinnoh-based title. But now it seems to very much make sense and further add on to the pile of evidence that this is all a lead-up to this new Unova game. For example, it is implied in the games that Alder's ancestor, the champion of the Unova region in the original Black and White, is the ancient hero that is spoken of in the games, as we see a picture of an Alder lookalike in the houses of both the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan. We also have Ingo appearing out of nowhere, and not just an ancestor of Ingo, literally the same exact Ingo from Black and White, who fell through a space-time rift into Hisui just like you did. There's also Enamorus and the Forces of Nature, who are random enough to appear here on their own, but then they also have a whole new member added to them as well with Enamorus. We even have an ancestor to Clay appearing in the games as well in the form of Leon. And those 4 things almost make it seem like this is supposed to be a Unova game rather than a Sinnoh game. And that doesn't even include all of the new Unova-based Pokemon that appear in this game as well that I mentioned earlier. There's even the fact that this is all happening in Legends Arceus, where the player is sent back in time to Hisui, with this game taking place in the distant past, which echoes the themes of time that are occurring in Scarlet and Violet. So there just seems to be way too much going on here for it not to be some intentional kind of foreshadowing. The question is though, is all of this just foreshadowing, or will some of these Unova elements, like the Ancient Hero, possibly be addressed or followed up on in this Unova game? Only time will tell, but it makes the prospect of this game even more exciting. And to round us off, we have one more hint that I think is honestly as significant as anything else and really helps to remove any further doubt that you might have that something is indeed going on here. It was announced at the Pokemon World Championships this year that Ace Spec cards are going to be making a return to the TCG next year in 2024. Ace Spec cards are a kind of item card that were first introduced in, you guessed it, the black and white TCG era in the Boundaries Crossed expansion. So from literally every angle, the new games, the old games, the Pokemon, the characters, the settings, the rumors and leaks, and even the TCG, we are making a return to Unova. And in my personal opinion, there is so much evidence here, and it is so strong at this point, that it is all but confirmed that we are getting a Legends Unova, a Black and White 3, or something along those lines as the next main series game, possibly even as soon as next year. What do you guys think about this though? What do you think about these hints, and how do you think they'll potentially connect to a new Unova game? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and leave a like and subscribe for more if you haven't yet. With that said, I'll be back very soon with another video. Thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.